It seems like every parent wants what's best for their kid, right?
Of course.
But when your child has, different learning needs, figuring out that best path can feel impossible. Like you're navigating a maze but blindfolded.
Yeah.
And when it comes to parents of, children with autism, ditching that one size fits all approach is so important.
Yeah, it's really important.
So today we're diving into the world of individualized ABA therapy to
Okay.
hopefully help make sense of it all.
Absolutely. Yeah, you hit the nail on the head.
Okay.
ABA is often misunderstood.
Yep.
People think it's this rigid program that's already made.
Right.
It's really anything but that.
Okay.
I like to think of it as a tailored suit,
Okay.
where everything's meticulously crafted to fit that child's needs and goals.
Okay, so where do we begin?
Right.
So, with the tailoring process, is it bringing in a picture of your kid and saying, make them amazing?
If only it were that easy.
Great.
It'd be great, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
In reality, though, it starts with, well, detective work.
Okay.
Just imagine therapists putting on their metaphorical deerstalker hats,
Okay.
observing the child, really talking with the parents and caregivers to get that holistic view.
So it's not just about, like, we hear sometimes targeting those problem behaviors.
No, not at all.
Yeah.
It's about understanding what's behind, what's motivating that behavior.
Okay.
And that understanding is going to be the foundation for the individualized roadmap.
Okay.
It's like you wouldn't build a house starting with a roof.
Right, right. So once they, I guess, have the blueprints, I guess you could say,
Yeah.
then they start making goals.
Exactly, yeah.
But these aren't your typical, okay, time to learn your ABCs kind of goals.
No, not at all. We're talking about goals that are personal and meaningful to that child's development. So for one child, it might be about improving their communication.
Okay.
And that could be through verbal communication, sign language, even using picture cards. For another child, it could be about those everyday living skills like getting themselves dressed or brushing their teeth.
Wow. So it's about like empowering them to kind of navigate the world how they need to.
Yes, precisely.
Right.
And one thing that I think makes ADA really unique is its reliance on data.
Okay.
Think of it like a constant feedback loop. Therapists, they're really tracking that progress. They're analyzing what's working, what's not, and making those adjustments as needed.
So that's really interesting. So it's kind of like, I don't know if this is the right analogy or not, but like a fitness tracker,
Yeah, kind of.
but for your child's development.
Exactly, yeah.
Okay. So how does this data like translate into the interventions? Can you give our listeners an idea?
Sure. This is where I think things get exciting. You've got techniques like discrete trial training where we're breaking down the skills into smaller steps, very manageable,
Okay.
almost like building blocks.
Oh, okay.
And then there's natural environment teaching.
Okay.
And with that, learning's happening in the child's natural environment. So we're using their favorite toys or activities.
Oh, so it's not just confined to an office.
No, not at all.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
I was going to ask, where does the family fit into this? Because it sounds like they'd play a pretty big role.
They do. They really do. It's essential, actually. One of the kind of core principles of ABA is consistency
Okay.
across all environments. So parents and caregivers, they become super involved. They learn the techniques that are used in the therapy sessions so they can support their child at home, out in the community, at school.
So they become like part of the therapy team in a way.
Exactly. That's a great way to put it.
I would imagine that makes a huge difference.
It does. It's essential
Mhm.
because a child's progress really depends on everyone being on the same page.
Right, of course.
Working towards those same goals, celebrating those little victories together.
Of course. Yeah, that makes sense.
And that actually brings us to the kind of, I guess you could say, the heart of individualized ABA,
Uh-huh.
the behavior plan.
Okay. Let's talk about, those challenging behaviors because we all know they can be really hard for parents and caregivers.
Yes.
How can a plan that's personalized address these behaviors in a way that is effective but also compassionate?
That's where, we have to go back to that detective work.
Okay.
Before we jump into solutions, we really want to understand why. Why is this behavior happening?
Okay.
It's like a puzzle. And we're putting those pieces together, right?
Right.
We're observing, talking to people. Are there any triggers? What is the child getting out of this behavior?
So it's not just about stopping that behavior, but almost figuring out what need it's filling for that child in that moment.
Precisely. And we call that the function of the behavior.
Yeah.
So is this attention seeking? Is it to try to escape something they don't like? Is it sensory? And once we understand why, that's when we can start to really address it.
Okay, so that's where the behavior plan comes in.
Right.
Okay.
Instead of just trying to, make that behavior go away, we're teaching the child replacement behaviors.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So behaviors that serve the same function,
Yeah.
but in a way that's more appropriate.
So instead of like, stop throwing your toys, it's more like, let's find a different way to show you're frustrated.
Exactly. You got it.
It's like we're giving them a way to use their words, even if they aren't words.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Exactly.
Okay.
We're giving them the tools to say what they need to say so everyone understands.
Okay.
Like I'd say, child, when they get overwhelmed, they're prone to tantrums, the behavior plan might be, okay, let's teach them how to ask for a break.
Okay.
And we can do that with words or gestures or even a card or something.
That's amazing because it's like, I don't know, we're teaching them the words they need.
Yeah.
And not only will that, I would imagine, help with the behavior, but it'll make them feel better too, right?
Yeah, you got it. And, just like with all of ABA, really, that data collection, all that monitoring, those are really key to making sure the behavior plan is working.
Right, right. So it's not just like we make the plan and it's done.
Exactly. No, it's a process.
Okay.
We're tracking the progress, we're making adjustments, and we're always collaborating with those families
Okay.
to make sure that plan is good. It needs to grow as the child grows.
That makes sense. It's not just like a one-time thing.
Right.
It's always being adjusted as needed. So for our listeners out there who might be thinking, okay, that all sounds good, but my kid is really unique. How is this even possible? What would you say to them?
Well, that's where that initial assessment, all that detective work, it's so important.
Right.
The therapists, they aren't just watching, they're listening to those parents. They're getting to know the family and just understanding that child.
So it's really about building that trust right away.
Yes, absolutely. Because, ABA therapy isn't about telling people what to do.
Right.
It's about working with those families
Right.
to create that space where the child is supported.
Yeah, that really connects with me. It's about empowerment for everyone,
Exactly.
not just the child.
Exactly. And it's that feeling that really leads to some pretty big changes sometimes. When those parents feel like they have the tools, the knowledge, that they really become, the biggest advocates.
Now, thinking about the long game here, this isn't like a quick fix, right?
Yep.
It's a journey, I would imagine. What can people expect, with time frame, with progress, all that?
It's really important to have realistic expectations going in. It's not, it's not magic.
Right.
It's going to take patience and consistency and a willingness to adapt,
Sure.
and each kid's journey is going to be different.
And that's okay.
Exactly. That's okay, because sometimes it's just about knowing you're going in the right direction, right?
Of course, yeah.
And celebrating those small victories,
Yeah.
a new word, a task, a social interaction that maybe wasn't happening before.
Right, right.
Those are the moments, right? And that's what makes this approach so powerful.
I mean, it's amazing how far ABA has come. We've learned so much.
We have, yeah. And we're always going to be learning. That's how it works. But the important thing to remember is that every child can learn. Every child has their own strengths and challenges.
Yeah, right.
And, we can help them unlock all that potential.
Yeah. And for our listeners, if you may be feeling a little overwhelmed by all this, just remember, your kid best.
That's right.
You're their best advocate.
Exactly.
So don't be afraid to ask if something doesn't seem right,
Yes, ask for clarification, ask those questions, because you're such an important part of all of this.
Yeah, don't be afraid to use your voice.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Finding that ABA provider that's right for you, it can be hard, like finding the right shoe. Sometimes you have to try on a few pairs.
That's a great analogy.
Right. So, look for someone who's going to listen, who's going to hear your concerns, who values your input, who really cares about your kid.
Because you're trying to find that perfect fit for your kid.
Exactly.
And for your family.
You'll know when you find it. You'll feel good. You'll feel supported.
Right.
You'll feel ready to do this.
This has been so insightful, and we've covered a lot today.
We have.
From the start of this, individualized therapy to how important data is to how the family's involved. As we start to wrap up, any last thoughts?
If there's one thing I hope people listening take away, it's that, every single child has the potential. Every single child, it doesn't matter what their challenges are, they can learn and grow.
Right.
And ABA therapy just gives them the tools to do that
Yeah, okay, I love that.
in a way that lets them be themselves.
Yeah. Yes.
And, that helps them reach their potential.
This has been so great. I've learned a lot, and it's given me a lot to think about, especially the part about the data.
It is really interesting, isn't it?
Yeah, it's almost like a feedback system.
It is, yeah.
So you know you're going in the right direction.
Right, takes the guessing out. You can make better decisions because you have the information right there.
Yeah, it's almost like you said, it's like a compass,
Yeah.
when you're in uncharted territory. So for the people out there who are wondering, where do I start?
Oh, that's a good question, yeah.
What's the one thing you would tell them?
I would say, remember that every child is different. There's no one right way to do this. So don't be afraid to ask those questions, to advocate for your child,
Yeah.
and find a provider who really gets it.
Yes, yes, I love that. Well, thank you so much for joining me today on this deep dive.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
It's been really great. Before we wrap up, I keep thinking about our listeners, right?
Yeah.
Some of them might be feeling overwhelmed,
Yeah, I can imagine.
maybe even a little intimidated by all this.
It's a lot to take in.
What advice would you have for them?
It makes sense to feel that way, honestly.
Yeah.
It's a big decision. There's so much information. I think I would say just trust yourself.
Okay.
You know your child better than anyone.
Yeah.
So if something doesn't feel right or if you just have questions,
Right.
don't be afraid to say something.
That's so important.
Yeah,
Ask for help. Ask for clarification. You're on the team. Right?
you are. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
And remember, finding a provider, an ABA provider,
Right.
it's not always easy.
Right.
It can be like, trying to find the right shoes.
Oh, I like that.
Sometimes you got to try on a few pairs.
Yeah, that's a great analogy.
Look for a provider who listens,
Okay.
who hears what you're saying,
Mm-hmm.
who wants your input, who really, really cares about your child.
It's about, that perfect fit for everyone.
The whole family,
And I think you'll know when you find it.
right?
You'll feel heard. You'll feel like you've got support, like you're ready to do this.
This has been amazing, really.
It has been really interesting.
We've covered so much.
We have. We really have.
Yeah.
The therapy, that data part, how important families are, all of it. Any final thoughts as we wrap up?
If there's just one thing I could say, that I hope everyone listening hears,
Yeah.
it's that every child, every single one, no matter what,
Right.
they can learn, they can grow, they can do all of those things.
Right?
And ABA therapy, it just gives them a way to do that, to get those tools
I love that.
in a way that, lets them be themselves
Yes.
and, really reach their full potential.
So well said. That is a perfect way to end this. To everyone listening, thank you for joining us. We hope you learned a lot and feel a little bit more hopeful. And remember, you're not alone in this.